What's up guys, my name is Ace, and the third phase of Season 2 for Battlefield 6, titled Hunter Prey, is now live, and with this, we saw a bunch of changes, which I did cover all of the highlights of those changes once the patch notes went live last Friday. However, now that the patch is actually here, I wanted to dive deeper and actually take a before and after look at the Defibrillator as well as the Adrenaline Injector to see just how much each of these has changed and what that looks like in the gameplay itself. And diving right in, let's start it off with the Adrenaline Injector, also known as the AG3 Med Pen or Stim. I know some people had this confused with the Stim that you use when you revive teammates. That actually has a similar name. They have a weird naming convention with that. So I had some people saying these adjustments didn't apply to the Adrenaline Injector and instead it just applied when reviving teammates without a defibrillator. But that's not actually the case. This is the Adrenaline Injector that was changed. But with this, they added third-person healing support when prone on your back. So basically you can use this while prone. I think this was part of the confusion as well. It says healing support when the Adrenaline Injector doesn't heal. I think that's just a weird way to word it in the patch notes, but this is absolutely the Adrenaline Injector. So you can now use it when on your back. They also mentioned they lowered the intensity of the on-screen effect and visual presentation. So let's just take a look at it before and after right now. And instead of side by side, I want to show the full screen so you can see what it looks like on the peripherals as well. And this is what it looks like pre-patch. You can see the contrast definitely bumps itself up. You get darker darks, lighter lights, and then there's a bit of a visual effect around the edges of the screen there. And now looking at it post-patch, honestly, it looks very similar. They may have dialed back just how much of an increase to the contrast that you're seeing there. And I believe that effect around the edge of your screen is also slightly amplified, so it's just a little more obvious that this is active in that sense. But overall, I wouldn't say there's a massive adjustment here. If you get yourself into a darker area, this is still going to make those shadows that much darker, and it could still be harming your ability to see enemy players in those situations. However, much more importantly here, they said they shortened the injection animation, they updated the pen visual to better align with the new animation, and they retimed the gameplay effect to better match the updated animation and audio. So now let's take a look at a side-by-side look here. Keep in mind, I synced these up from the moment the animation began, and as you can see there very clearly, the animation is so much faster with the Adrenaline Injector now. However, you might see on the tail end there that the effect appears to wear off sooner post-patch compared to pre-patch. So it looks like this may be a nerf, but it turns out that's just due to the fact that the animation is faster. So the effect is activating sooner pre-patch compared to post-patch, and that's where all that discrepancy is coming from. So still has the same duration to it. It's just a very noticeably faster animation, so your gun's not going to be down for nearly as long. And that was one of the most annoying parts about the Adrenaline Injector, is just how long that animation was for quite a short duration of effect. So definitely an improvement there. I don't really know if this is enough of an improvement because the effects themselves aren't really all that incredible when you compare it to the class gadgets of some of the other classes. But in either case, the Adrenaline Injector is at least a little bit better now post-patch compared to pre-patch. Now let's take a look at the defibrillators, and we saw quite a few more changes here. They actually completely reworked these. And just a recap from the patch notes here, the amount of time it takes to fully charge the defibrillators has been increased from 0.65 seconds up to 1 second. And you'll see they also added a little HUD element there, which is nice, so you can see just how far you have charged it. Next, the defibs can once again one-hit kill enemy players if they're fully charged, and only if they're fully charged. After that, for the defibs, now you get 3 charges that will regenerate over time, whereas previously you just had effectively infinite charges or infinite ammo with this, with no regeneration necessary. And this is what it looks like post-patch. So as you're using them, you'll use up your 3 charges, and they will immediately start regenerating, and it takes 4 seconds to regenerate a full charge, and you have a maximum capacity of 3 charges. So pretty straightforward there, and that just prevents situations like this from taking place, where one medic can just stroll in and revive like their entire team in an area. That was a little bit overboard, and quite frustrating if you were the guy that downed all those players, and now suddenly they're all instantly up. And speaking of them being instantly up, they also adjusted some timings here. So the first thing is it now requires a 0.35 second charge before a revive can be performed. So you can't rapid fire tap these nearly as fast. And this is where you're going to see a big difference here. Looking at it pre-patch versus post-patch, if I'm reviving 3 teammates that are on the ground as quickly as possible from the moment I start swapping, you can see not only does it take longer to revive the first guy, it takes longer in between each of those revives. And so overall, it takes quite a bit longer to get those 3 guys up compared to pre-patch. And I would say that's probably the biggest noticeable change here with this, is you just can't be spam reviving quite as much there. However, one last thing to point out is revives will now restore between 50 and 100 HP based on the charge level of your defibrillators. Whereas my understanding pre-patch was if you didn't charge your paddles, you would revive your teammate up with 50 HP, and fully charged would be 100, and there was no in between. It was either charged or not charged. Whereas now I just created this little animation to highlight how much HP you'll be healing depending on how much you've charged your defib in that moment. And I think this is great as well. Just in case you don't quite get that full charge, but you did charge it a little bit, you are rewarded for that at least somewhat. And just a big reminder, since I know there are many people out there that really need to hear this, I'm sure many of you already know, your movement speed is unchanged by the charge level of your defibrillators, meaning you will sprint at full speed, charged or not, with the defibrillators. And as a result, as long as there's a bit of a distance between you and the person you're about to revive, and it's a situation where you don't need to have your gun up in the process of closing that distance, there's no excuse for not charging your defibrillators up, and you should absolutely do that to give that player a much better chance of surviving that situation once they get revived. Now, obviously, there will still be situations where charging isn't the best option. Sometimes you do need to have your gun out, or you only have a brief moment to get that revive in and get your gun back up so you can get back in the fight. Or if there's multiple teammates side by side, for instance, that need to be revived, then yeah, there are situations where tapping is fine, but try to get those defibs charged whenever possible. And that's pretty much it when it comes to those changes to both the Adrenaline Injector as well as the Defibrillator. And when it comes to my thoughts on these changes, as I said, first off, with the Adrenaline Injector, it's really nice to see that improved animation timing, but at the end of the day, I still can't help but think that it's a bit on the weaker side, and we should either have like a longer duration of effect or just some additional effects added to make it a little more worthwhile to even bother using that Adrenaline Injector. And then when it comes to the defibrillators, especially now that I've seen the timings and everything on this, even as a dedicated support player that uses defibs all the time, I'm on board with these changes. I think these were appropriate changes because the defibs, in my eyes, were like the clear choice out of a class gadget in the entire game. They were so powerful. And as nice as it is to be able to run into a room and revive multiple squads almost instantly, at the end of the day, I don't think that's healthy for gameplay balance and flow, that one single medic can run in and have that much of an impact when it takes significantly longer and more effort to put all of those people down in the first place. And so while I can understand some pushback to these changes for people that liked being able to do that, just run in and spam revive everyone, at the end of the day, I don't think that was healthy for the gameplay. And the new state of the defibrillators, I personally think, is better. Now, of course, those are just my thoughts and opinions now that I've seen the timings on this, done the testing, and played around a little bit with it myself. And this is where I'm curious to hear from you guys in those comments down below. How are you feeling about the changes to the Adrenaline Injector and the defibrillators in Battlefield 6? Are you guys generally happy with these changes, or maybe not so much? If you enjoyed this one, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.